Thank you for taking the time out, being here this morning with us. And I'm Muna Auri. I'm a director at the Myanmar Private Equity and Venture Capital Association. And I'm also partner at Seed Myanmar Ventures, a seed stage venture capital fund focused on Myanmar. So I can see that we have many participants already joining us. It's really great to see all our members, friends, and also many new names joining us. It keeps growing every session, so I'm very happy, and thank you all for joining us. So the past few months during the pandemic period has, of course, been a very challenging period, but also an exciting time for us, as we had a number of discussions on the impact of COVID-19 and how it's set to unearth new opportunities, because there are new opportunities, obviously. And a topic that has been part of the Myanmar story in improving the efficiency and security in finance since before the pandemic is the digitization of payment systems. And that's why we're here today. So today's webinar is part of our new digital payment series. We will be looking into the work of Telcos operating digital platforms. We will be also uncovering some of the challenges and new opportunities for the investors. And our panel series started 2 weeks ago, of digitalization in Myanmar, that is led by SMEs. And following today's next panel that we're playing is the topic of bank-led digital payments. But before we start, so I'd like to, of course, briefly tell you about our organization, Myanmar Private Capital Association. Sorry, I would need to interrupt. There is someone who needs to go on mute. I think all participants and attendees will. Thank you. All right. Thank you. Okay. So I was just saying that before we start and kick off the panel, I would like to briefly tell you about our organization, which is the Association of MPE&VCA Association in Myanmar. And it is a group of institutional investors dedicated to improving the vibrant PE and VC industry in the country. And our mission is to increase the awareness and, and to facilitate the growth of the industry and of the financial services, in fact, industry as a whole. And so I'm excited to share that we have a growing membership base that consists of funds managing now over $250 million of capital, as well as members from service providers that support the investment process in the country. So if you're not a member now, I think it's perhaps time for you to consider and explore the benefits that such membership can offer you. So the vision of the association is to promote and nurture the training and professional development of PE and VC professionals in Myanmar. And since incorporation last year, and in just a year, we've been really active thanks to a great team on board. And we have organized 6 trainings, 6 networking events. We have also organized a very interesting new virtual networking event. There are 2 coming up that you may want to check out. We have organized 4 webinars, and we've also supported multiple and numerous partner events. So please take a look at our newly revamped website for more information, to see our upcoming event programs, and also more information on our membership and other plenty of articles. And next week, for instance, on the 23rd of July, we will be running a session on warranties and indemnities insurance. So if that's a topic of your interest, please hurry and register. This webinar is being recorded, so if please only participate if you are comfortable with that. The slides and the recording will be available to you, and this is also a great opportunity for you to ask all questions of all sorts of practical issues. So this is also a great opportunity. Please ask any questions you may have. With this introduction now, I would like to hand over the floor to Yemiet Min, founder and CEO of Next Labs, and he will be moderating the panel. So thank you and enjoy the session. Have a great day.
Thank you, Mona. Thank you. Thank you. Great speech as always. Good morning, everybody. I'm Yemiet. As Mona mentioned, I'll be moderating the panel today. Just as a background, we did another session about 2 to 3 weeks ago, but that session was mainly focused on businesses, SMEs, and how they could participate in this payment wave. Today's session will be focused on talking about telco-led payment players, and we also have our planning the next session, which will be in the next 2 to 3 weeks. That would be more focused on bank-led payment players. So without further ado, I would like to start the panel. Edmund, I don't think we can see you yet. If you could switch on your video, that would be great. Let me see if we can see you now. Perfect.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you.
All right, gentlemen, let's start. Awesome. So since we are all going through these extremely difficult times of COVID, I would just like to start with a question around COVID, especially to give all of our listening audience an update about the impact of COVID, especially from a mobile wallet player perspective, and how this industry overall has been impacted, whether you're seeing a huge uptake of mobile payments, because there's also been a major push from the government, especially with the newly announced COVID-19 relief plan. So maybe let's start with Arvinda. If you could please give us an update, that would be great. Let's start with that.
Yeah, thanks, Yemiet. So I think good morning, everyone, and I think it's an honor to be here, and good to see all of you here and spending your time on the webinar. I think it's a great thing. And just to start, Yemiet, I'll just give you a background. I think with Edmund here, a veteran in financial industry and mobile wallet companies across the globe and all. So when we talk about first, we talk about the mobile wallet space in Myanmar. I will take you just a step back before we talk about even the COVID and the impact on the financial sector, because if you look at the overall mobile wallet, it is part of a digital payment space in Myanmar. And then if we want to talk about the digital payment space, it is generally divided into 4 components. So one of them is the mobile wallets, obviously, which is MFS-led licensing, and which is Wave, M-Pesa, MPT Money, OK Dollar, and MyTelPay kind of players. Second is about the bank-led players in the mobile wallet, which is again like True Money, KBZ, 663, AirPay, OnePay, and those kind of players. Then the third is about the payment systems. So we have quite a few payment systems, which is like 123, Near Me, there are One Stop and Pay Here kind of things. And then the final one I would say is about the payment backend system. So you would hear a lot about 2C2P, Easy Bills, MyanPay, CorrectPay.com kind of things. So any digital payment space is always created with this ecosystem. And then obviously we have the channels, we have the agents, we have the customers, we have the SMEs, we have the billers and everything integrated across all these 4 or 5 different ecosystem players. So I think as a service, mobile financial plays a vital role in any country's economy, because it's the biggest thing which can drive financial inclusion in the country. And I would say Myanmar is like one of the fastest growing market in the mobile money segment compared to any other emerging markets in the area. So like for us, for example, we already are 60,000 agents across Myanmar out of 295 townships. Like if you look at the other players, which are, I'm talking about all the other ecosystems and all. Similarly, when we talk about M-Pesa and when we talk about MPT Money or MyTelPay and all, everyone is reaching across Myanmar, and it becomes easier for the customers to access the services just across their homes. And I think that's one of the biggest reason for mobile, and that's the biggest reason for Myanmar also. As we know, we are like more than 100% mobile penetration, and it's from 2014 till date, it's been an extraordinary journey, and then with more than 24 million digital customers accessing 3Gs and 4Gs, the country has leapfrogged in that area, and that is benefiting in this also. If I'll come to COVID, I would say, like if you look at our background, we were generally divided into two kind of businesses, which were agent-led business, where agent assists customers for any kind of services, which is called generally a over-the-counter model, and which is a huge success because when we go more rural, the first part of financial literacy starts from the person who give assisted services, and that's why that model is one of the biggest success, and that's a success all across the emerging markets, whether it is Asia or Africa. But due to COVID, we have seen a massive uptake in digital. So I would say, if we look at our business, we are seeing a very strong growth in registrations of wallets. There has been a massive uptake on the digital businesses. So if we see our MAUs. So MAUs for us is a customer who is active in 30 days and do any kind of financial transaction has taken a big jump during a COVID. At the early phase, I would say we saw the OTC business getting a hit and getting slower, and that was obviously because of the remittance, the factories getting closed, the first knee-jerk reaction which came in where everything was getting closed in the first month of April. That had an impact on the over-the-counter business. But right now, when we are seeing a growth in the P2P, where person sends money from one wallet to another, bill payments, e-commerce, game contents, which means that people are really utilizing mobile wallets during this period, and it becomes convenient and safer for everyone to use a mobile wallet for all these services which were traditionally being done, either going to a bank, either going to a government offices, either going to a private players offices. So those things are changing. We are also seeing that people are playing a lot on the games. They are spending a lot of time online, and which means like, the top-ups which used to be generally a call away on a retailer is decreasing, and it is more on the e-top-ups. Many new segments of online gaming has emerged. So people who are not interested in gaming are getting into that, and they are playing more. In fact, the gaming companies have come back with the tournaments online, and that's again like it's everyone is trying to digitalize things and provide the services. So that is done. We could look at e-commerce businesses. They have taken a big leap, and I think similarly for mobile wallets, payments through e-wallets has become a big. So we have seen a very significant uptake for e-wallet. So whether it is the companies who want to use Wave as a service for payment method, or whether customers who are utilizing Wave to pay back to the e-commerce has increased significantly. One very simple example I could give is about the food delivery. There used to be 25,000-30,000 kind of deliveries across Myanmar in the starting of the year, and then I think those numbers have gone to daily numbers now. So like there is a 600%, 800% jumps which are coming in all these kind of businesses, and obviously they need e-wallets for the payments also. So we have seen a significant amount of uptake, and then there is a what you call a crisis is, in my view, is always opportunity, and it creates its own opportunity. So we have seen quite a few businesses which never thought about transforming from cash into digital. That's a huge uptake there. Similarly, the government side, we have seen great support from government, and all the ministries and CBM has been supporting us to go beyond and get the masses, which is farmers, the pensioners, the low income people, to get into digital space and to deliver services to them on their mobile phone. That's been a great, I think, initiative in COVID. I would say there are certain things which took a little hit, and for example, I can give you about the traveling. Or we used to have pre-COVID a lot of jump in terms of people traveling, booking hotels and all, which took a little hit and in the initial period. But what we saw now during the COVID and now when we are health-wise, we are much better. Although we see that the border trade and all is still under pressure. That people have started traveling a little, and secondly, they have started shifting their buying habits more digitized. So earlier, they were more happy to visit a physical agent and buy a hotel ticket or buy a plane ticket or a bus ticket. Now these are more moving towards digitization, and we have seen a good uptake in terms of people booking online tickets for using wallets. Similarly, I think I would say it's all the NGOs and all. We have seen a lot of projects being done. I think M-Pesan and us together, we have made it free for everyone if they're using for COVID services, any kind of disbursements, so NGOs and all, and I think that has been taken very well. And I think we are also very happy to be part of that, so that this could actually benefit the society. I think that's from my side.
Yeah, thank you. Before we proceed with to Edmund, actually, I just wanted to point out that if any of the listening audience has any questions, please do feel free to type in your questions via chat, so that I can moderate the questions at the end of the session. Thank you very much. So Edmund, actually, I wanted to focus a little bit more on the governmental services, because we had a great chat about that during our debrief session. Especially, you know, we've been, as a country, we've been talking about providing e-government services, providing payments for governmental services for the longest time. In fact, many of the companies have been working on that for the longest time. But it does seem like COVID actually accelerated things and actually put in some urgency into the matter. What are you seeing from your perspective on you know, digitizing government services? Particularly, what I would like to know is, you know, as a telco-led mobile money player, what could be your contribution? Also, you can give examples from other countries that you've seen based on your experience. But you know, what could Myanmar do to accelerate this?
Thank you very much, Jemiat, and good morning to everyone. Thank you for joining us. I think my colleague Avinda has done a bit of justice to the background and in terms of how mobile money, the digital payments are picking up in Myanmar, especially within the era of COVID. Just to start, I will just take a step back to give some kind of overview in terms of the global picture of how the uptake of mobile money is going. So far, mobile money has has actually been deployed in about 95 countries so far. And as at the close of 2019, we have seen the accounts on mobile money globally crossing 1 billion subscribers, which is a significant achievement. Now, if you look at that kind of growth, and if we put Southeast Asia or Southern Asia in perspective, within the year of 2019 alone, we saw almost about 14 million subscribers joining the platforms across the countries where deployments have happened. Now, one of the important things to note about mobile financial services, and especially if I put it in the context of mobile money, is that the access is what differentiates and what is driving the adoption. And if I say access, for every 100,000 population, for instance, you will come across about 11 bank branches. If you look at the area of ATMs, you have just about 33 ATMs. But if you bring it down to mobile money agents, for every 100,000 population, you have almost about 228 mobile money agents that are serving this kind of population. So it gives you an indication of how convenient and the access, proximity to the service, and that is what is driving the uptake of mobile money. Now, within the COVID context, there has been a significant increase in the appetite of both government institutions, as well as NGOs, to shift from cash to digital. And that is a behavior that's the positive side of the behavior and the impacts that we have seen when it comes to the COVID situation. Of course, the service type and how it has been impacted is dependent on the industry. And Avinda mentioned the situation of the tourist industries, the travel agencies. Those channels definitely took a significant hit when it comes to the impact of COVID. Now, the positive side of it is that other channels, which is the e-commerce, which is the collections, have actually also taken a very significant take. If I put the context in Myanmar, for instance, a few of the areas where we feel there will be a significant change when it comes to government services is within there's what we call the P2G, which is person to government, and there's what we call the G2P, which is government to person. Now, government to person here refers to any form of payment that is going from government institutions or governments to beneficiaries. And that's a typical example of that is the social interventions that government is trying to put in place. And one of the most secured and the most convenient channels to deploy such services is through digital, because of the values and the advantages opportunities that presents. And then we have the P2G. So it is important to also note that the payments systems, the drive and the uptake will depend on the collaboration between the private sector as well as government. There is what we call government policy, which must be consistent with the strategy. So for instance, if you pick, I'll give an example of some of the highlights that we need to start paying attention to in terms of working closely with government institutions, working closely with regulators to drive. If you compare, my last assignment was in Zambia, where I handled the MTN mobile money. One of the challenges I have identified has to do with the transaction limits. When in driving digital adoption, how much a customer can transfer or transact on the wallet is a significant component that needs to be addressed to actually speed up the uptake. I'll do just a comparison of Zambia, for instance. Recently, the transaction amount we have, wallets have two limits. There are two tiers. There's a light KYC and there's the enhanced KYC. Now, the light KYC allows you to do some minimum transactions, whereas the enhanced KYC allows you to perform a transaction that is of higher value. On the enhanced KYC, which is the tier 2 KYC for mobile money wallets, for example, in Zambia, that is in Africa, is almost, they have recently increased it from $1,600 all the way to almost about $8,000 in a day. Now, that compared to the transaction limits that we have in Myanmar is significantly low. So when you want to drive adoption, if I am a small business owner or I just sell some goods at the market, at the end of the day, I want to be able to move that money on my wallets, either as a means of making payments to another beneficiary or as a store of value. Most of the people who use mobile money, the expectation is that either I want to be able to safeguard my funds, so I put it on my wallet, or for ease of cash handling, I convert it from cash into electronic. And I want to make any payments to my suppliers, I can also use that. But the limits is extremely important, because what it means is that today the tier 2 limits is in Myanmar, for instance, is somewhere around 1 million chats, which is significantly lower than what persists in other countries, especially when it comes to the transaction rate. So there is that appetite, especially, and we have seen a very positive outlook from even government institutions who are driving towards the usage of digital channels for both collections and for both disbursements. One of the key things that we may have to look at addressing is how do we remove these obstacles, and it has to be done in a collective manner. If I say collective manner, it has to be an industry-led, it has to be regulatory-led. So that collaboration between regulators and the players in addressing the key challenges that must be addressed or must be overcome to be able to drive the uptake of mobile money, especially in Myanmar. But overall, there is that positive outlook of the willingness from government and government institutions, and we are definitely excited and happy to be part of that. Just to wrap up my points, we also, Avinda mentioned the COVID intervention that has been put in place, and I think it's coming from both MPE&VCA and Wave, where we are offering zero fees in terms of no charges to NGOs and institutions that are seeking to make payments towards interventions that are geared towards addressing the COVID-19, and we are happy to support in that aspect as well.
I do have a follow-on question there, actually. So just to clarify, are you saying then that the transaction limit, the account limit and the transaction limit both should be increased to drive adoption? That's number one. Number two is, do you also feel that the transaction fees that players are charging to merchants and customers should be reduced to also drive adoption?
I do believe that I will take the transaction limits and the account limits first. Definitely, in most of the markets and from my experience rolling out mobile money in a number of the African countries, limits is the limits on wallets, when enhanced, is a major boost to adoption. That is proven in most of the markets. So that is one of the areas that we need to pay attention to. On the transaction fees, definitely for a customer, the most important thing the customer looks at is the need to remit. They need to use a platform to either remit money or make payments. That need is the first thing that needs to be satisfied. Then he now starts looking at cost. Definitely, if there's any room to actually make transactions fees more affordable, it is a plus for the industry. And some of the deployments, a typical example for such services is interoperability. In some of the markets where interoperability has been introduced, basically over the counter or sending across to other networks, fees may not be the same as sending on net. Those differentials in pricing exist in most markets. But what happens is when you are able to enable interoperability, the ease of moving funds is enhanced, and for that matter, over a period of time, you will definitely achieve some level of price reduction over a period. So it is important for us to look at how do we ensure that we achieve interoperability, which will over a period of time assist in reducing the cost of transactions. And it is not just a straightforward answer, because interoperability in some markets have not really taken off as expected. Other markets has actually seen a good uptake. And if I talk about interoperability, I'm not just referring to transferring money from one mobile money operator to the other mobile money operator only. I'm actually looking at a 360 view where you have a central switch that is switching transactions from all banks and all mobile money, mobile financial service or payment systems. In that manner, you will then achieve a significant gains when it comes to reducing the cost of performing a transaction for the customer, which in turn increases the adoption of the service generally.
Thank you. Avinda, do you want to add on anything?
Yeah, I think similarly, I agree with the Edwin's views, because Africa has been instrumental in taking the world towards mobile wallet, and I think it's a great experience which talks from his side. But I would also like to reiterate here, government of Myanmar and CBM, till March, we had the limits, which was up to 5 lakh. And I think at the onset of this, the CBM took a very, I think, a very bold and great decision for the people, where the limits were doubled, and we are at 1 million as of now. And I think that has increased the intake at both business level and at the customer level significantly. So this proves that, if you can increase the limits, the more and more businesses will be able to take it. So for example, if I tell you, I'll just give you one simple example of the pensioners. So when we started this project of pensioners, where the people doesn't have to go to bank branches, and they're 60 years, 65 years old, and they have to stand for hours in the queues to take their own pension out. And during the COVID, it is not even worthwhile. Like, you stay in a group of people, and you're in a queue, and you take out that money. With the limits going to 1 million, I think they have been very easily being able to take that money into their wallets, and you don't have to go anywhere. Just go to your neighboring shop whenever you want and take out that thing. Similarly, the disbursements which government has started. So, like, for example, the loans which goes to the farmers across, yeah, they are anywhere between 4 to 8 lakhs kyats. So if it was the earlier limits, it would have been difficult. You have to do 2 times or 3 times, and then it becomes a little difficult for a person to go back again and again and get it done. But with this limit, they could very easily just go at one shot, take out the money and use it. So that is one example out of that, on that pretext. Similarly, is the businesses, because a very simple example, the ISPs, the internet bills have increased significantly for all of us. The electricity bill has increased for all of us. It's a very basic needs, and I think the way the thing changes because of a basic needs in the COVID and all, I think this has actually given an uptake on that. And I think it'll be great if we can match up all across the world on those, and it will, I think, increase the businesses as well as customers uptake across Myanmar.
Thank you. Thank you. So I guess, to summarize both of your points, there is a direct correlation between transaction limits and use cases and the drive of adoption. And I guess ultimately removing some of these, or making the limits higher, would increase more convenience to the consumer ultimately. Right. Great. I want to switch gears a little bit, since we're on the topic of government policy and regulation. In the previous discussion, Deputy Director General from CBM actually joined, and one of the conversation was around working collectively as an industry, not competitively, to increase digital and financial literacy. And when she mentioned, she wasn't just particularly looking at mobile money. Financial institutions are also included, as well as telcos, as well as ecosystem players, right? Are you seeing some of that initiative happening already? Because earlier State Councillor also mentioned that in order to put Myanmar onto this whole digital economy journey, much literacy initiative are needed. So, what for both of you, actually, are you seeing any initiative efforts that combines all of the efforts from all the players together?
Yeah, so I can start this, and I think Edward could add up in this. First of all, I think you have done a lot of research. You meant I think a great question again, because I think it's my 7th year in Myanmar into various projects, and I think to start way from scratch, which was almost so we'll be completing 4 years now, and 5 years for me on this project. the private players in ecosystem have a very big responsibility, no doubt about that, because we can reach everywhere, and being a telco-led model and now into distributions with our distributions, I think one of the best distributions across Myanmar, we have that reach, which will help us. But I will just take you 4 years back when we started this, and where we are today, and how I think most of us are working together. I remember in 2015, if I have to go to a shop and tell them that, will you become a MFS agent so that you can help transfer a person money from location A to location B. Leave apart digital. Digital was too naive that time. I think most of us in Myanmar would use a retailer for top up in 2014, and that was the time when I think because the telecom, all the four players became big and everyone could get access of mobile phone. The retailers knew that they can do a top up through through a physical voucher, but no one could understand that they can send money also from location A to B through a wallet, through a mobile phone. So people used to, if I used to go to 10 shops a day, all 10 used to refuse me that they will not want to become a wave money shop or any kind of money related this. No. We only believe in one thing, which is cash. So I have done months and months of tracking. So if I remember my Samsung phone that time, I used to cover almost 15 to 18 kilometers per day without a single success of converting a shop. Similarly, when going to customers, if I ask, like, would it be okay? Like, I used to go to factory workers in Lantire and our Shwepitar and request them sitting outside the factories when they come out and ask them, like, will you use, how do you send money? So the biggest example was this. And they will say, okay, they'll use maybe the unconventional methods of sending it through friends, sending through a bus driver. I think that was one of the very good reason when people used to say that a bus goes from Lantires to Eravadi somewhere, and the bus driver takes the money, and my family members there pick up the money. So similarly, there were other methods, or one of the friend will go at end of the month, take everyone's money together and give it to the families there. So there were different methods being utilized. And when I tell them, okay, you have a mobile, you send money from here and it will directly reach to your place, and your mother or your sisters or your brother can take out the money from there, just like the way they do a top up. So no one was ready. Yes, because there was no trust. No one has seen this. I think that's how we started the journey. That the biggest thing for us, which we understood, was social media. That whatever we say, social media has a great reach. We took the help of that. SMS were still a good mode of communication to them. A lot of village meetings, I remember going to smallest of villages and doing village gatherings and talking about in Aravadi region that how they don't have to waste a single day of traveling and those kind, and that can be utilized more for generating money and all those kind of things. How the parent education started, how the kids education started and all. And I think we have come a long way ahead on that. And similarly, the other mobile operators I've seen, like, they have started the same phase, both on the channel side, on the customer side. And again, there are two different things, as you said, right? There is a financial literacy at one go, and there is again a digital literacy. So Myanmar being a trust society, it is not easy to change that in a short period. Because the strength of the country is the trust. I think we all know that we are the #1 country in donations all across the globe, which in itself is a big statement that we trust each other. And I would say that was one of the factor also, that the uptake on the agent assisted model was very well received by the people. And that's why we concentrated on both, which was wallet and OTC. And then we came to know very easily that unless we assist the masses into moving for a digital and financial inclusion, it will become a bigger challenge that we cannot reach every customer and give them this information, because the social media can give you a very limited information. So the start from an agent-led model where we could guide, train, educate 60,000 agents who in turn can educate millions of customers was our first way of getting into the financial inclusion part. This took us several steps, and I think all the other players played a very vital role. And similarly, as I was talking earlier, we have the ecosystem where there are the payment systems, there are the back-end payment systems, there are banks. All of us together, the more we inform the end user about the services, the safety measures, the way they can get benefit, like instead of keeping $50 under the pillow or inside a tin box, it is much safer to keep that in a wallet. It's a very simple thing, but I think to explain it to a worker or a farmer upcountry, it takes a lot of efforts. And I think this will be a continuous journey. And I think most of us are working on that, and it's an everyday question to us. Yemad, if I tell you, every day, every hour, I think all of us work towards that, because it's not only that we have to educate, we also need to safeguard the people also. These people never had any experience of financial services. It's very easy to blame that why does a farmer gives a OTP or a PIN, but when we use a debit card or credit card, if someone calls us, we don't give a PIN card or a internet access. But I can tell you several examples from my personal life and my friends and the big businesses also. When they get a call from a bank, not bank, but people pretending to be a bank and saying that their account has been blocked because they could see that the network is down there and SMSs are not going, and they'll say, we'll help you in that, and can you share your account number and PIN of. So this could happen with most of us who are educated and in a financial and corporate business for even 20 years, 25 years. So this is very simple for happening to any other person. What I mean with this is it's a long journey, and I think government is supporting, the CBM is supporting us. I think they have been helpful in taking these things across various industries, and I think jointly it will be a long walk, but I think we'll have to do this continuously. It's a never-ending process.
So Edmund, where do you see as an opportunity for players like yourself and Wave Money to collaborate to work on these initiatives together?
Yeah, thank you very much. I think in terms of the growth in mobile money and then the digital payments in any market, that cannot happen without proper collaboration amongst the active players. And I mentioned interoperability as the first step. The second thing I would also want to touch on has to do with the awareness, and when it comes to the regulators' involvement. And I think the central bank has done quite some good job. Are we there yet? No, there's still a lot more. It's a continuous engagement, because the level of awareness, the level of financial literacy in any country definitely has an impact on the adoption, because if I must be aware of it before I even start using it. So definitely you have a situation where there are various stages of mobile money deployment in any market, and the more matured the deployment in any market is, the higher the awareness of the customer, and then the lower the tendency for a customer to fall for pranks and basic fraud. Avinda talked about a customer being called by quote unquote a fraudster pretending to be coming from a bank and all of that. Those are scenarios that we expect to see in any market, especially when digital services are now picking up. So over a period of time, and if I'm using the word advisably because there must be deliberate efforts to actually drive that level of awareness, and that comes from the individual operator. So for example, how well are we training our agents? How well are we engaging our customers to be aware of some of these scenarios? How well are we increasing the level of awareness within the communities as individual operators? That responsibility starts from we, the operators. And then at the industry level, there is that collaboration, and in most cases, a few ones that have seen very significant success is basically through industry collaboration with a significant contribution from the regulator, consolidating the efforts of the individual players. That is when you start seeing that level of awareness and the kind of growth that you would want to see in any markets. The other opportunity I see here, of course, relates to beyond just remittance in any country. It's important to also understand what are the impacts and the benefits of driving digital payments. We know how cash handling, how expensive cash handling is. And in most situations, we do not consider the cost of convenience. We do not consider the cost of the solution itself. There are several quite heavy investments that go at the back end in terms of deploying any service. And I'm sure Avinda is fully aware of this particular point. The investments you will make are not investment that you will recoup even in the first 2-3 years of your operations. Your margins are probably going to get better after your third, fourth, fifth year, depending on how the market responds to your services. So, yes, in terms of how we will contribute as individual players, there are several ways. Driving the interoperability, which is one, over a period of time. Number two, trying to also ensure that we replace physical cash handling as much as possible. Increasing the penetration of digital payments instead of cash payments becomes very critical, because then there are several benefits, even in terms of how much physical cash the regulator, the central bank will be printing. That physical cash circulation goes down, which is a significant saving for the regulator and the government as well. And I would also state that when it comes to driving digital payments, it gives the central bank and also the industry a better picture of who is using what types of services. And that kind of insight that we generate, that kind of data that we generate, can help policymakers to be able to now make decisions as to what kind of area of support do we need? What kind of intervention do we need to put in place? Now, I will give a very simple example of a credit bureau, for instance. In most markets, credit bureaus are only joined by formal banks and probably to some extent some microfinance institutions. It is important to know that your credit worthiness is not only a function of how your bank account is functioning, but other payment channels. That is why interoperability is extremely important. Once you converge, then the regulator and the relevant institutions are able to tell. So, for example, you cannot go and borrow money on, for example, one bank or one microfinance institution, default on that loan, and then go to a separate institution to go and borrow another one, because the centralization of that data enables us to track usage and also protect the financial stability of any country. And mobile money, as we see it today, is going to grow. In some markets, it's contributing. The turnover is actually so significant that it is growing in the ranges of about 4 to 5% of the country's GDP. And that is quite significant. So for us to be able to make that kind of impact, it is important for that level of collaboration in the areas of driving payments, in the areas of driving awareness, protecting users, AML, and all of those components of driving any financial services in the country. And of course, it now also, one point I would also want to touch on is there are so many opportunities when it comes to job creation, even with just the deployment of a mobile money service in any country. So if you take the likes of agents, for instance, today you have, Avinda mentioned the number of agents they have. We have a little over 30,000. What you need to also know is that 30,000 is not just the only number of people who are working. Some agents have about 2 or 3 attendants. So in reality, you are looking at almost about 2.5%, 2.5 times ripple effect when it comes to the level of job that this a product or a service like a mobile financial service deployment can actually have on the country in terms of job creation for the people. So these are the main points I would want to touch on. And of course, the acceptance of the service will be happening over a very long period. And if I say long period, there are stages where you would attempt to introduce the service and the level of acceptance is almost zero. And I'm sure the feedback Avinda gave was a typical of any mobile money deployment within that particular stage of any deployment in any market when it comes to digital payments. In some of the markets, I have had the opportunity to work and develop these kind of solutions. We went through a similar stage where you attempt to explain the concepts of mobile money, you attempt to explain the concepts of digital payments, you attempt to explain the concepts of remittance over the phone, and people will not just understand. Why would I give my money to you to put it on my phone? That's the first question you get. But with an increased level of awareness, aggressive and deliberate way of increasing customer awareness, increasing our investment in financial literacy around some of these services, then the level of acceptance keeps growing. It is similar with even merchants. Some merchants will not be necessarily willing to take these services at the initial stages, but over a period of time, these scenarios started changing. And definitely I see a very positive outlook for mobile money, especially, or digital payments, especially in the Myanmar market. Looking at the penetration of smartphones and the level of mobile penetration, there's a big and significant opportunity for that to happen. So that's it from me.
As we are running out of time very soon, I'm saving this question for the last question, actually. We talked about telco-led model and bank-led model, right? So to both of you, my question is, are you guys enemies, frenemies, or friends?
Do I take that first?
Sure.
Okay. So there is always that thin line between competition and partnership. And in most markets, some of the banks, and I'm careful with that approach. Some of the banks were not understanding the concept of mobile money. So to answer that, I will take a step back and give a bit of a background as to what is the wallet, the wallet that we are talking about. What is it? Every single money, electronic value that sits on the wallet. If you have an M-Pesa or a Wave account and you have a balance of, let's say, 10,000 chats, the physical cash, equivalent of that physical cash, is going to sit with a partner bank. Our license does not permit us to take deposits. So that is why you have a bank as a partner. So the physical cash that you hold on your mobile wallet to say that you have 10,000 chats, you can go to an agent and redeem that 10,000 chats. That money, the physical cash, sits with a partner bank. So it is not, the physical cash is not sitting with, for example, Wave as Wave Money or M-Pesa as M-Pesa as a company. The physical cash behind that sits in a partner bank account, which we refer to as a trust account. So the advantage for banks to partner with mobile money, mobile financial service operators is enormous, because what will happen is that we, in essence, are a channel. So for a bank to be able to get that kind of deposits, all the money sitting on the wallets of customers, agents, merchants, the physical equivalence is sitting with a partner bank. So it is important for most of these banks to now start understanding, what is my play? What is the value for me as a partner bank? As a partner bank, you enjoy the floats that is going to come on the platform. The cash is not going to sit with M-Pesa or Wave Money or True Money. No. So it is important to understand that we are better off partnering than competing when it comes to, of course, there are some areas where the bank may feel that we are competing, but it is healthy competition and partnerships. I do not see the relationship between banks and mobile financial service or mobile money operators as competition. It is complementary. So, for example, I am somewhere in the village, and then my mother is somewhere in the village, and I am in Yangon, and I want to send money to my mother. There's no bank branch in the village where my mother is, but I can move the money from my bank account onto my wallet and then send it straight to my mom or my family member in that village. That is the level of partnerships that needs to happen, because the bank, we as mobile financial services are not banks. We don't operate as banks. We don't have the license to operate as a bank. We have strengths as telcos or as mobile financial service operators, and the banks also have strengths as a bank. Now, when you bring these two strengths together, that is when you are able to deploy amazing services. We are able to innovate, and at the end of the day, both players, the cake can only become bigger. Because for the telco, our strength is in distribution, our strength is in customer acquisition, our strength is in the data that we have. For the bank, their strength is managing the trust account, managing the liquidity when it comes to the amounts that are sitting on the platforms. So that level of collaboration is what grows any market. So in most of the markets, the banks that saw this at an earlier stage are reaping the benefits as we speak, because they are holding very good amounts of the deposits that are sitting on the wallets, and that is the level of collaboration that we are seeking from most of the banks here in Myanmar. So we are not enemies; we are actually friends.
It does sound like you're frenemies in the middle. as much as it's politically correct to say you're friends, but at the end of the day, you're probably frenemies. But Avinda, actually, the question that I had for you then was, in Myanmar, it's quite unique in Myanmar because telcos are looking into this mobile financial services, which Edmund rightfully pointed out. But at the same time, the banks are also trying to offer the same thing. And in the end, as a consumer, what ended up happening is we have 9, 10 different payment options with very siloed approach, with very little interoperability, right? But we also understand that from the central bank, there is a QR standard coming. So interoperability will eventually happen. In that case, where do you see collaboration and competition happening when everyone can interoperate in the same ecosystem?
Okay, I think I would say again, it's a very good question, Hemant, on that aspect. But again, like taking cue from what Edmund said earlier, the not a single entity could take the complete financial inclusion for the country. The ecosystem has to be developed, like a very simple thing. The unbanked population of Myanmar is known across, right? It's a known figures across. Like if you look at the Asian countries also, in fact, ASEAN, if you look at that, we are much lower penetrated, right? There are a lot of hard work being put by banks, and um, still there are certain areas which even if they try, they have their infra challenges, right? You cannot open up a bank branch where there are 1,000 customers, not even 1,000 people, but there could be only maybe 5 customers, because the challenge would be again a big documentations and those kind of things for them to open up they might not be literate, right? If you ask a customer to go to a bank and do a $50 transaction or 50,000 or 40,000 chat transaction, will they go in a bank? Definitely no. And even a teller on a bank will say, okay, why you're coming for a 20,000 chat for a transaction to inside a bank and going the bank and all those kind of things. Similarly, I think the reach will always be a challenge. I would say there are always segment of customers which you can never reach through banks, right? So then there is, I think, KYCs. There would, and the people who are at the lower end of the pyramids. This is more on the unbanked population I'm talking about. So this is a very clear scope where in last decade across world, mobile wallets have proven that they could be the big assets for the country, and they are required to build up that financial inclusion. You will never build up financial inclusion with only 20% of the population and leave 80% of the people out of that. Unless this bridge is gapped, is filled up, there will be always a challenge, and that's been where I think most of us are filling in now. Second, I will come to the digital aspect. I think all across the globe again, if you look at the markets like Indonesia, you look at the markets like Philippines, I would give very good examples for them. Is these are the countries where you have the mobile wallets and also the banks which has their wallets. So what practically happens is every bank comes with their own wallet and target their own customers which were earlier in mobile banking, and then now, okay, I'll give you one more thing, which is a wallet. So what I do, I practically I don't carry 9 wallet. I would be carrying, if I'm 3 banks, I would be carrying 3 mobile banking accounts, 3 wallets, and maybe 3-4 of like us. So what I do between them, and what is the use case? Why should I buy a top up from a mobile wallet, or why I should buy a wallet airtime from a bank wallet? Customers are smart. Every one of us is a smart one. If I'm playing only on a discounts, if I'm giving a 7% discount on a top up, I will use you for one day. The other day I get 8% from the other one. I will use it for that. But these are not sustainable in long terms, and these are only a short term gains for getting acquisition. But that's why the challenge of keeping customers active comes on a digital space, and that's the area where we think the CBM is going in right direction. it is going and enabling the people so that the payments, the other use cases, whether it's coming to bill payments and all, have been brought to everyone's there, and the ecosystem will develop on that. If I know that I have a wallet, and if I can use various banks to do a cash in or take the money back into those banks, that is a very critical period for us. I think, and these are the things which will come, and that's how the other markets have evolved. So for the digital customers, again, it will be how and different kinds of cash-ins possible. How can that cash-in which is there in a wallet could be utilized so that I don't have to worry about what happens with the money which is there in the wallet. I can use multiple things. I can pay my kids fees for that. I can pay my electricity bill. I can do my recharge. I can buy electronic items, or I can do e-commerce. I can pay for my like I can pay for any kind of bills. If I have my friend, if they require, or if I have my family member across other parts of the country, I can send money and they can easily cash it out. So that's why I feel this ecosystem is evolving, and it's evolving very fast in Myanmar. I think that's why you see everyone understands that wallet is for future. And even if you have a mobile banking app, you still want to go into a wallet and have all the billers and all. But I think, yes, this will all come to a standardization and MDRs and all, which will be a good thing for a consumer and SMEs altogether.
Thank you, Avinder. I will definitely ask in the next panel if the wallets are the future, just to see what the perspective from the other side is. Having said that, I think we have a great discussion. The time is running out, so I would just like to wrap up here. I think we've pretty much covered all of the questions that the audience asked as well. We've touched upon them. And I could talk to you guys all day long. So I just wanted to have a quick recap of my takeaways for the audience. So number one takeaway for me is the correlation between transaction limits, the regulatory limits, and the adoption and the increment of use cases and the convenience. The second takeaway that I had was the interoperability. This was also a key point in the last discussion with the central bank. And the only way forward is if we can all interoperate with each other. And I think that will naturally drive more choices and more adoption for the consumer ultimately. And also that more increased awareness means more acceptance, and more merchants will be aware, and the more consumers are aware, the more merchants will accept, and that will have a snowball effect in the end. So yeah, I would just like to wrap it up here since we are over time actually. Thank you both Avinder and Edmund for taking the time this morning, and thank you to all the listening audience for taking the time this morning. As I've said, there will be another panel together with Bankland operators in the next 2-3 weeks. So please stay tuned, and hopefully we see you again in the next 2-3 weeks. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Yema. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks,
you. Avinder. We'll catch up later.
Thanks, Edmund. Nice to see
Thank
you.
you.
Thank
Bye.
Nice to see you too.
Thanks, Mona. Thank you.
Thanks, Arvinder. Thanks, Team Admin.